Welcome and good evening.
Ernest, how are you? You doing all right? Yes, ma'am.
Welcome and good evening. My name is Deanne Lee. I am the East Texas Regional Advocacy Director for Raise Your Hand Texas. The future of Texas, our economy, community, citizenry, all depends on how well our students are prepared today. All students deserve a level playing field and equitable access to a quality education regardless of their zip code. We believe strongly that the future of Texas is in our public schools. Tonight, you have the opportunity to hear the candidates' views on public education. Raise Your Hand Texas is a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization founded to advance public education. We're coordinating a series of events such as this, 25 events across the state leading up to the primary election. I would like to thank all of you who helped tonight in the organization of this event. Dr. Jessica Johnson in particular, tonight couldn't have happened without her help, but many of you, I'll be introducing some other ones here in just a minute, but everyone, I appreciate your hand in this event. If you would please join me in standing as we have our pledges. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now the Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you. You may be seated. I would like to thank tonight's timekeeper. You may think it's an easy job, but we need someone to keep us on time and also equitable, of course, in the answering of questions. And so I would like to introduce retired Superintendent John Kirshner. He is a 50-year resident of Liberty County. He has service with public education for 34 years. Not only has he been an educator, his wife, his daughter, and son-in-law also are in public education. He raised his family right here, and so this area is very near and dear to him. Still, as often we retired superintendents do, he's actually the current interim assistant superintendent in Dayton ISD. So thank you for being here tonight and for helping us and for all of your service. And then I would like to introduce our moderator for this evening. Dennis Wagner is the current superintendent of Anahuac ISD. He has been there since 2018. Prior to serving in Anahuac, Mr. Wagner served as a teacher, coach, elementary and secondary assistant principal, elementary and middle school principal at Barbers Hill, Monsignor Kelly Catholic High School, and Orangefield ISD. He received his bachelor's in kinesiology from Lamar University, his master's in education administration from the University of St. Thomas, and his superintendent certification from Lamar University. He is a native Texan. His wife is the band director with Barbers Hill. They have two daughters, one in college and one in high school. And he is known for being an innovative leader with a commitment to providing all students an outstanding education, regardless of their background, their race, their ability, their language, or their family income. Thank you so much, Mr. Wagner. So at this time, I will turn it over to Mr. Wagner, who will be at the table in front of us on a lapel mic, and he will review our guidelines going forward.
Well, good evening and welcome again. My name is Dennis Wagner and I am the superintendent here at Anahuac ISD. Before we get busy, starting tonight, I would say let's review a few of the rules. First of all, please silence your electronics as a matter of courtesy for tonight. We definitely want to make sure that we hear everything that you have to say, and we definitely want to be respectful of that. Also, just a reminder that this event is being live streamed on Facebook Live by Raise Your Hand Texas, and we want to say thank you for putting this event together. So just a couple of procedures and policies and expectations for tonight for our audience members. Just a reminder to maintain an atmosphere of respect. Please refrain from applauding or any other expression of approval or disapproval during the question and answer period. We will show our appreciation at the end and give everybody an opportunity to applaud once we complete the process. Also, do not attempt to distribute campaign materials anywhere other than the designated candidate tables. We have candidate tables set up to the left of the room, and at the end or the conclusion of this event, you may have your opportunity to collect those at that time. Also, we welcome your tweets and social media posts from the event, and we would appreciate you tagging us at Raise Your Hand Texas, and we would appreciate reviewing those as soon as the event is over. Also, just a couple reminders, the candidates for the Texas House District 18 are seated in alphabetical order. The candidates will give opening remarks for up to 3 minutes in order from left to right, and the speaking order for candidates' answers to questions will vary as given to candidates before tonight's event. Each candidate will generally have 2 minutes to answer. Our timekeeper will raise signs to let us know how much time is left. The yellow sign indicates that 30 seconds remain, and the red sign indicates that time is up. Candidates are asked to please stop promptly when your time is up, or continue to finish up your thoughts. Candidates, please respond directly to questions and talk about your own positions, not those of other candidates. Remember, tonight is about you, and we want to hear what you have to say. Please do not interrupt other candidates or attempt to engage them when you are speaking. If I feel that the candidate is not respecting these rules, I will kindly interrupt the candidate and redirect the conversation. So at this time, we will introduce our candidates. All candidates for the office of State Representative District 18 were invited. The order in which the candidates are seated was determined by alphabetical order according to last name. The candidates present tonight are Representative Ernest, Ms. Janice Holt, and Dr. Stephen Missick. Each candidate will now have up to 3 minutes for opening remarks. We ask each of you to tell us a little bit about yourself and about your family's experience with Texas Public Schools. We will start tonight with Representative Bales. So, Mr. Bales, if you will enter the podium. And we will start the clock as you begin.
First of all, I just want to say thank you guys for showing up here today, and thank you to Raise Your Hand Texas for putting this together. Public education is a huge part of who I am. It's a huge part of what House District 18 is. So my name is Ernest Bales. I was born and raised in Shepherd, Texas. I work hand in hand with most of you guys sitting here in this room, but just for those of you guys that I haven't, I was born and raised in Shepherd on a dairy and beef cattle operation, a working class guy. I've got my high school sweetheart here in the back, Courtney Bales, who is a longtime teacher. My whole family's been in public education. We've got 2 sons, Cinco and Rigby. They are 12 and 15. They both attend Cold Spring Oakers. And the last 3 terms that I've served as your state representative, I have worked directly with each and every one of our administrators, our superintendents, to make sure that you have a very strong voice. We don't have enough votes to pass anything in rural Texas. It takes 76 votes to pass anything. We will never again have a rural Senate district. This district, after redistricting, I had Liberty, Sage Center, and Walker County. We lost Walker County, gained Hardin County and East Montgomery County, and over the next 10 years, 3 school districts are going to be in the running for the fastest growing school districts in the state of Texas. Cleveland ISD, Splendora, and New Caney. But we are still a rural district, and it's very important that we have rural people, sound business mind, who are here strictly for the kids. Our public education is not about politics. It's not Republican, it's not Democrat, it's not political talk, it's strictly about what's best for the kids. And that's one thing that I've always done. They matter, rhetoric does not. So with that, I appreciate you guys being here. Look forward to being able to answer your questions, and if you ever have anything that you could need, or that I can do to help, as you always have, please don't hesitate to reach out. Thanks again.
Thank you, Representative Bales. we appreciate that. This time, our next candidate will be Ms. Holt.
Good evening. I'm glad to be here this evening. It's always good to be with fellow educators, so thank you for coming out tonight. My name is Janice Holt, and I live in Silsbee, which is in Hardin County. My husband and I are a small business owner. We own an air purification business. We do indoor air quality. We have been very, very busy over the last 2 years, as you can imagine, with COVID. And we also raise Angus cattle on our ranch in Jasper County. We are the parents of 4 children, 4 grown children. They all have families of their own. We have 5 grandchildren that are all school-age children, well, minus one of them. Our oldest is a senior this year, and our youngest is 6 months old. It's good to be with you this evening. Now, I am a former educator. I taught for 10 years in Silsbee, I taught 1 year in Woodville ISD, and then I taught the remainder of my time in Silsbee ISD, and I taught 4th grade. And I thought that was real funny, and part of the instructions about the attire was to dress like a 4th grade teacher, so I was very familiar with that. You know, my campaign is about security. I'm working very hard to secure those freedoms and liberties that we all hold dear here in Southeast Texas. I want to secure our border. I want to secure our elections. I want to secure life. Another thing that I want to work to secure is our communities, and that includes backing the blue and keeping our community strong that way. But one of the main things that I do want to secure is our schools. We have to make sure that we protect them from critical race theory and other liberal ideologies that might creep into our schools. So I know that that is near to you too in Southeast Texas. That's near and dear to you too as well. And so I'm going to Austin to fight for that. I come from, just want to go back to my background just a little bit. I come from a family of educators also. My grandmother was a school teacher way back in the early 1900s before she married my grandfather. And my daughter's a school teacher. She's a school librarian there in Silsbee ISD. And I'm very proud to say that because I have been able to have my own business and I'm not teaching school anymore, I was able in 2014 to run for school board. And so I've been able to see the other side of school education. I currently serve as the board president of Silsbee ISD. And I look forward to your questions tonight, and I look forward to having conversations afterwards. Thank you so much for letting me be here tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Holt. Next, we have Dr. Missick.
Good evening. Thank you for having me here today. I just want to introduce myself. I'm Stephen Andrew Missick. My background is military. I have 28 years of military experience, serving as an enlisted soldier and as a chaplain. I've been to Iraq twice, once as an enlisted soldier, the second time as a chaplain. I've also served 3 years at the border, and I was a supervisory chaplain for the entire border. And I worked the border very thoroughly because I care about my soldiers. I wanted to be wherever they were to check on them and how they're doing, keeping our nation and our state safe. I'm also the author of several books, mostly on biblical subjects, but Egyptian mythology and other things. Independent Christian filmmaker as well. I did a movie about St. Jude Thaddeus, one of the 12 apostles. All these things are available, like I mentioned, on Amazon. Both my parents were educators, and I have experience in education. While I was earning my doctorate, I needed a flexible job because at the church work, I needed a flexible job, so I worked as a substitute teacher. And so for several years, I was teaching everything from kindergarten all the way to 12th grade, every subject you can imagine. I think I learned as much as I taught doing that. And I think education is very important and something I want to go into in the future. But like Janice was saying, I have certain shared concerns with her. We get our focus on improving the quality of education, moving away from, she was talking about critical race theory and other forms of political indoctrination, because it's everybody's schools, right? From every walks of life, every political persuasion. So I think that we need to focus on improving the quality of education for our young people so they have greater chances to succeed in the future. So that's one of the things I want to do if I'm able to win and go to Austin and education opportunities and choices for our students. So,
Thank you, Dr. Missick. We appreciate that. I want to say a special thank you to all the candidates for your opening remarks and letting us get to know you. At this time, we will begin our question and answer part of the forum. The candidates have been notified of these questions ahead of time, and each of you will have 2 minutes to respond. Just a couple of reminders. I will remind each of the candidates that to please respond directly to the questions and talk about your own positions, not those of others. Please do not interrupt others or engage them when you are speaking, and please stay within the time limits. We know that we'll do a great job of that. And so the way it's going to work is I will give you a topic, give you some background information, and then you will have the question. At any point in time, if you need me to repeat that, I don't mind doing it. So the first topic is learning loss and the pandemic. The background knowledge to this is the COVID pandemic created massive challenges in our public schools. The rapid shift to remote learning, student enrollment decline, academic learning loss, social and emotional needs, and teacher and staffing shortages will have an impact on schools for years to come. Ms. Holt, you will be first today, so if you'll step up, and I'll ask the questions. The question is, what should the state's role be in helping schools meet this challenge?
You know, this is such an important topic. It has really been in the forefront of education for the last 2 years. And as a school board president, I have seen this firsthand of how the effects of COVID and the resulting restrictions and mandates and things that have come along with that. The state must partner with our school districts. We must have the funding available in order to be able to give the resources to the local school districts so that they would have the opportunity to be able to provide resources to the students. We all know that there are learning gaps that have been created due to COVID and the pandemic and all of those restrictions. And I, for one, am very concerned, as I'm sure you who are superintendents and in the education field are concerned about that. So what are we going to do? How are we going to be able to fix that? That is what the state is going to have to address in the next legislative session. And I look forward to those conversations. As an educator, I have firsthand experience with that, and so with education, and so I look forward to being able to address it completely. Another thing that's a concern of mine is the mental health of our students. I don't think it's a coincidence that the suicide rates and amongst our teenagers, and even younger, has skyrocketed over the last couple of years. And so I worry that we don't have enough resources to cover that. And so I think we need to make sure that there are some resources for counselors and psychologists and things like that that can come into the district and be able to address those needs. Those are the 2 major things, those gaps that are going to have in our learning, and also the mental health aspect of the lockdowns and things like that. So I believe those are the 2 areas that we're going to have to concentrate on in the next legislative session. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Holt. We appreciate that answer. Next will be Dr. Missick. Dr. Missick, do you need me to repeat any of the questions? Or?
no, that's fine. I think I got it. Appreciate that. I was very concerned when I was affected by COVID. I had it. Unfortunately, my father passed away from COVID. He's the pastor of King of Saints Church in Cleveland, Texas. Now I'm the pastor. I hate to have to come to that, assume that responsibility and role at those sad situation and occasion. But when this whole thing started, I was just really worried about the school closed down. So you're looking at every grade level being affected and students being out of school and being behind. And even today, last semester I'm still substituting from time to time, and you see 1/3 of the kids aren't in class even yet. I guess their parents are keeping them out. And this is our future. It's the future of America. An entire generation is going to be behind, so we need to play a lot of catch up on that, and we need to do what we can to bring them back up to where they need to be. So we need to do funding for creative programming. But I think a lot of parents need to assume ownership, and this, I think it's important to see the parents. When we have the critical race theory, it's good to have parents out there concerned and involved about their children's education. So that should be encouraged, not I'm very disturbed the FBI is trying to close all that down. because we need to be engaged. Parents need to be engaged. We need to be sensitive to what the parents' concerns are. And honestly, I think that they're talking about like wearing the mask. What kind of effect does it have on elementary school students? I think this is to their detriment. So even though COVID needs to be taken very seriously, and like I said, I've dealt with the consequences of it, we need to have more, we need to get back to normalcy as soon as possible for the benefit of our children so they can attain more and achieve a fuller education and catch up with that. So we can be the leader. I want America and Texas to be the leader of education around the world.
Thank you. And Representative Mills?
You know, I think it's had a huge impact on loss of learning time for all of our students. And I got to live a lot of that just side by side with you guys on the superintendent calls and working at the Capitol as part of the legislature to make sure that we were heard. We had a lot of rules that came down. They weren't always very realistic. And we didn't have the funding to actually compensate the districts to put those rules into place. Connectivity was huge. Devices that we didn't have to send home to students. You go to places throughout this district, there is no service. We have very severe poverty throughout this district, and those kids are as deserving of a quality education as anyone. They don't have access to technology at home, so we as a school district tried to be able to step up, give access to that technology, give access to hotspots, and be able to handle that. So those were just some of the few things that we did, but also as teachers, it's no different than hiring someone in sales face-to-face versus someone who's a telemarketer. It is very different. When you have a group of kids in the classroom, you see that aha moment, you know whether you're getting through or you're not getting through. We put our teachers in a very tough situation to have to do everything virtual and online, when at a time we as a state had a very viable K through 12 curriculum that we did not make readily available to the school districts. That was probably one of the biggest issues. So we had a ton of guidance, and every time that we had a conference call with the commissioner, the very next one was contradicting what was said, and we weren't giving enough support to our teachers and to our schools. So I just think that we as a state have got to step up to make sure that those resources that we already have in place are available, and that we don't tie those with strings so that you guys can use those locally how best you see fit.
Thank you. Our next topic is teacher workforce. Teachers, principals, and school staff are currently leaving the education profession in alarming numbers. Working conditions, pay, and other job opportunities are all factors in helping attract and retain highly effective teachers. Dr. Missick, you will be first.
Yes.
Question is, are we paying our teachers what they are worth? And did the legislature do enough in the 2021 session to keep teachers in the profession?
I was talking to a friend of mine who works in education just yesterday, and the conversation is about why certain teachers, a lot of teachers she knows are leaving, and part of this is we need to support our teachers, and these teachers feel like they're being run ragged. I know how it is. I've worked in schools. It's very difficult. We need to support our teachers. So they get home and they have reports and emails, and it's like they don't get, they're running them ragged, right? So maybe you can look at ways to, you got to take a break from things too. It's demanding jobs, so maybe it's like, let's give the teachers their me time in the evenings, not running them into the ground. But I think that we need to do more to support our teachers. Like I said, it's a very difficult job, and it's certain classroom management is important. Sometimes it's very difficult and stressful to keep the children on task. So yes, they need to. I heard that the legislature is planning on increasing how much the teachers are going to be paid, and even doing hiring bonuses for them. If I'm the legislature, of course, I would support those initiatives because, like I said, I know how difficult it is working in education, and we need to support our teachers and make sure they're paid enough so that they can their sacrifices for the good and better in our community are rewarded. So that's my position on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Mills?
The short answer is no and no. We we don't support our teachers as a state or as a society either, and we don't pay them enough. Because they're on the front lines of everything we do, and for a lot of kids, that's the only stable figure they have in their life. We as parents, and we as a society, expect a whole lot of our teachers. We expect them to raise our kids when we don't choose to raise them ourselves. However, when they get out of line, we don't allow them to be disciplined. And then, too often, we put statutes in place that don't support the administrators to then support the teachers. So during the 86th legislative session, House Bill 3, we were able to pass that to help some. We were able to make sure that's fully funded. And the 87th, TRS is huge. You like to see some light at the end of the tunnel and know that that is sustained and that you're going to have that at the end of the day. And that's not been the case. So we have been able as a legislature to make sure that we have the money there to keep that fully solvent. So I tell you, I filed a little bit more bills on behalf of public education as I have any other thing, just to make sure that we support our teachers, we support our kids, and it goes back, we as a TEA, as a state agency, we like to push a shift to charter schools. Charter schools are funded 100% by the state contribution at statewide average plus maximum adjustment. You put a charter school right next to a lot of our public schools right here, they're going to receive more dollars per kids and have to provide a fraction of the services. So until we can change that system and fully support that, make it equitable across the board, we're going to have an issue recruiting and retaining teachers.
Thank you. And Ms. Holt.
As a former educator, I know the stresses that a classroom can bring. As Dr. Missick alluded to, he was talking about the work that they must do in the evening. You know, when you get out at 3:45 or 4 or whatever the time is, you know, your work is not done. You still must go home and grade papers and do things like that and make lesson plans, adjustments, and all of those things. So just to answer the question, no, they're not getting paid what they're worth. And the legislature has not done enough. And so more must be done. We have to remember about, you know, when someone goes into looking at the education field, they look at all of these things. I think they look at what the retirement will look like. And then they'll look at what kind of benefits are they going to have, you know, health care and all of those things. So as health care goes up and up and up, and their pay stays the same or just incrementally different, you know, it makes a difference when you're trying to recruit people to, good quality people to come into the education field. You know, in 2021, there were 327,000 teachers in the state of Texas. In 2022, that's down to 320,000. So we're losing teachers all the time, while the population is increasing about 7 or 8%. So you can do the math there. You know, it's not going to be sustainable. So we must do something through TRS and also through those healthcare benefits in order to, in order to broaden the pay there for our teachers, because they must be paid more for the work that they do. And so I will be fully on board with that when I'm in the legislature to make sure that that is sustainable throughout the next decade. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Our next topic is assessment and accountability. Texas administers a comprehensive high-stakes testing and accountability system that assigns an A through F grade to each campus and district, which can trigger sanctions that have closed schools and replaced elected school boards. Ms. Holt, you will be first today on this question. Do you think STAR and end-of-course tests are telling us everything we need to know about a student's ability to succeed in college and the workforce?
No. You know, there is no one test that adequately describes the progress of an individual student. If you're in education, you know this. And you see day to day a child, their education can go up and down on a day-to-day basis. And you can see strengths and weaknesses as we go along. And so every day as a teacher, you're adjusting that learning plan for that individual student and trying to make it, more accommodating to where they are. Sometimes it's remediation, and sometimes it's enrichment. It depends on where they are on the spectrum of education. And so to have that A to F rating be tied solely to the STAR test is not completely fair. And so I believe that that is one area where we really, really need to change that and to add to it more of our testing, our standardized, our in-class testing, and not just leave it wholly on one test. The stress that these students are under. When I taught fourth grade, the kids would come, and I tried to keep it very low-key and not emphasize that test. I never taught to the test. I taught the TEKS, and the TEKS would lead you into being able to be accountable on that test. But the whole school was so wrapped up in that test, and let's have breakfast that day, and let's do this that day. And the kids are so stressed from that. On more than one occasion, I had children who were physically sick because they were so stressed. And so we have to change that. We can't do this to our children. So that is something that I want to do when I'm in Austin as your next legislator, is to change that up so that we're not having such high stress associated with that test. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Representative Bells.
It absolutely does not. A lot of kids don't test well. They learn well. They just don't test well. We worked a ton on that throughout the legislative process. School districts coming in through TA, I have lived that. We dealt with that directly in the home school where I graduated from. We have a very low socioeconomic population. The percentage of those children that were read to in the homes is very small compared to a lot of your more affluent neighborhoods, and a lot of your more affluent districts. So that school district was up against a brick wall and had a very steep hill to climb. They were not able to be successful enough on those first years of testing. However, once they progressed through the system, they got up to the junior high, got up to the high school, those kids were very successful. So we penalized the entire school district based on the impossible situation of getting those kids to that point in a very short period of time. We worked a ton of legislation to try to change and put a greater emphasis away from that. A lot of kids just don't test well, and if you don't pass a lot of those tests, that shouldn't dictate whether you can graduate or not. We filed legislation to have it to where you can have an independent committee to assess the kids who are having issues with that final graduation based on the tests, based on their involvement in extracurricular activities, their involvement in the classroom, everything else they've done. They still may be a very successful student, they just don't test well. We also looked and explored options where is it better to have a more gradual test? You've got kids that go into the computer lab once a week or every 2 weeks. You actually keep up, and those are tests that lead up and monitor what their status is. Can we use that to actually figure out where the kids are as a good enough benchmark to know whether the school's being effective or not? We have a lot of options. The STAR test is not the best one.
Thank you, sir. And Dr. Missick.
I know tests are important. So while I was earning my doctorate, it seemed to me in a lot of the schools that it was all about the STAR test. It consumed everything, right? It's all about getting ready for the test, taking it. And then a lot of the teachers, once the STAR test was taken, they're having movies and pizza days the rest of the school. It's like, it's consumed everything. Now we do need to measure our successes and failures. Tests are important, I believe, but we need some balance. This is gone. I think it's consumed everything. And when I graduated from high school, we had tests we took, but it wasn't like it is now. So I think that we need to have some serious adjustments and just focus. I mean, you shouldn't have to have a test. The diploma you get in the end should, be good enough, right? So, like I said, tests are important. I think that shows you where you're at. I know some people don't test well, but it's important to have tests to measure success in teaching and knowledge. But we need to ramp down the STAR test a little bit, in my opinion. And like you're saying, the stress not just on the students, but on the teachers, right? Everything's on the line. So that's not good. We need, like I said, we need to have environments conducive for learning and creating curiosity and desire to expand your minds, not the stress of gotta take this test. So I think that we do need to have some reform and move back away a little bit from the STAR test.
Thank you, Dr. Missick. For next question, we will stick with assessment and accountability. Our current A through F accountability system is entirely based on STAR to rate our schools at the elementary and middle school levels. Representative Mills, you'll be first. Should our accountability system be so dependent on a standardized test? And are there other factors of school quality we should consider? And would you mind being specific on that?
It shouldn't be. I was actually there when we passed A through F rating, and what is that telling? What is that telling the kids, and what is that telling an area that's having positive growth? If you have a failing school district, how do you expect to have positive growth? You can't recruit good quality businesses. Good quality business come, they bring their kids. You're not going to have positive growth. So with that being said, I think we lose sight of letting each school district independently govern themselves, do what they find is effective, and just be a good school district. Let the teachers teach. And with that A through F rating system, I think we actually do ourselves more harm than good.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Missick.
There's a lot of similarities between this and the last question, but I agree with what he was saying, is that we should encourage our teachers and reward what succeeds, and imposing that, that's not good. What does that do? Or you're failing. We need to help them to succeed, and I think we can find other ways, innovative ways to encourage learning, encourage success, instead of slapping these grades on these teachers. Encourage our teachers to, like I said, to take charge of control, have opportunities to explore new ways to encourage learning and to succeed, so that our young men and women can succeed and have a better future.
Thank you. And Ms. Holt.
When the A to F rating system came into place, I was a part of the Legislative Advisory Council through TASB, the Texas Association of School Boards. And we had a breakout session that dealt just with this situation. And it was real funny. We were tasked with coming up with alternatives or how we can make it work better, that type of thing. And it was funny because every group, and I think there were 6 or 7 groups at the time, every group came up with with almost the same thing: is how can they base this off of one thing? And so, and we were also tasked with coming up with some other strategies. Some of the things that I think that would be better or could be added to, I think the accountability test is, we do have to have that testing. But some other things that I think could be added into that would be the local and state assessments. The other things that are coursework, the testing that goes on throughout the school year. That's an obvious choice. CCMR, the College and Career Military Readiness section, to be able to incentivize those programs and to get, see what those the districts that are employing those programs could be part of the assessment mechanism. The extracurricular activities, I think Representative Bales mentioned that. How are we making well-rounded students through that? And that would include our arts programs, the music and band and theater and just regular art through that. Also, health and safety. What are we doing in our school to guarantee the health and safety of our students? So those are some of the things that I think should be added into that assessment. And I look forward when I'm in Austin, when we're looking through these assessment tools, to be able to talk and have that conversation so we can add that into some of this assessment. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Holt. Our next topic, as we move forward, is school choice. During the 2023 legislative session, we will likely see a push for greater school choice initiatives, including state funding for private schools. Dr. Missick, we'll start with you. Do you support or oppose vouchers, which which are taxpayer-funded government subsidies for private schools and vendors with no accountability for results. Please be specific.
Okay, I do support choices in education and vouchers. I think that I think competition is a good thing, but we need to support our public schools, right? But I'll give you an example. I was teaching in this school, and it had this school had a very bad discipline problem. It's difficult to keep the kids focused on the class and the lessons. Very unruly. And I was looking at the school, and it's like, there's a lot of problems. This specific school doesn't have an environment conducive to succeeding in education, right? For students that do want to do well in academics, it's a challenge because of the discipline problem. And so I just want me to have like a voucher school or homeschooling or a private school for students who are more academically inclined, want to succeed in that, and the environment of that school isn't conducive to that. They have choices. So, and I think that it's not going to, most parents obviously are going to send their children to the public schools, but I think it's good to have choices. I mean, with COVID, a lot of people are homeschooling anyway, right? So and besides that, a lot of homeschool curriculums are you got networks of homeschooling, you got design curriculums, online teachings. I think it's a good way forward. So I do support choices in education, but of course, I'm also supporting our public schools. So I support vouchers, charter schools, private schools, Christian schools, and homeschooling. So that's my position. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Holt?
Yes, thank you. As you described vouchers there, it left off a portion that I want to explain how I would approve of a voucher system. Public schools are to be fully funded through from the state. That's in our Constitution, and that will always be, and we will always fully fund our public schools, or we need to always fund them fully. But being a Republican and part of the Republican Party of Texas, school choice is one of the priorities there. And as a Republican legislator, you take an oath that you will uphold the priorities of the Republican Party of Texas. So I do support school choice, but with some restrictions on that. So over the years, we have had an increase in charter schools and private schools, and there's always been the homeschool movement too as well. But if they were wanting to be funded by the state, if a charter school, which is funded by the state, but is it funded in a different way, but if a private school, a Christian school or a parochial school, if a private school, if they are wanting to be funded from the state, well then I believe that they must adhere to the same restrictions, the same guidelines, the same accountability that a public school has to adhere to. And so I think with that, in that vein of a voucher, I don't necessarily like the word voucher, but that is kind of the buzzword. But that's how, if there is going to be public funding for those other entities, then yes, absolutely, they must be able to be, they would have to comply with everything that the public school has to adhere to, is from structure of the school system itself to the accountability through the testing process. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Holt. And Representative Johnson.
I do support school choice. I feel we already have school choice. You can take your kids anywhere you would like to take them. I do not support the use of vouchers. The examples we just discussed, there's a reason that these private schools can charge what they charge per student. It's because they don't abide by the same rules. They don't teach the same curriculum, and they don't have the same accountability. If they did, they would not be the same private school. You look at homeschooling, we don't have dropouts anymore. My little sister's is a counselor there, and it's kind of interesting. You look, kids drop out. They simply drop off into the homeschool equation. There's a lot of push that we not actually change that homeschool because they don't want state intervention. If you have parents that love you and are very capable, you can receive an education that is second to none homeschooling. The last thing that you want is government overreach and government funding. I think the negative unintended consequence, you have parents that don't care enough about their kids to actually get them to school because of education and other issues. They end up dropping out. They then are lumped with the homeschool equation. And I don't feel that under any shape, form, or fashion, we should reward that with the use of state funding. So with that, I feel we already have a choice, but I do not support the use of vouchers to do so.
Thank you, Representative Bells. We will stay with school choice for question number 6, and we will start with Ms. Holt. It says, how do you feel about the expansion of charter schools in the state and in your community?
Well, in my community, in my town of Silsbee, we don't have any charter schools. And that's pretty much the way it is throughout rural Texas. There are not many charter school options. There are a few here in Liberty County and in the more urban areas. And as Mr. Bales, Representative Bales described earlier, you know, there is a different formula for charter schools, but they don't have to have those same accountabilities for that. And so I think that that needs to be looked at in such a way that we can make sure that there's more equity across those borders there between public school and charter school, because they are both getting state funds, and we need to make sure that it is an equitable situation for them to be able to be learning. Now, when I was part of Leadership TASB, we went around to a lot of schools in the state, and we went to a charter school. And we were told when we went in to keep an open mind about a charter school. And I could see the benefits of that charter school, because they're targeted, a lot of times they're targeted to a specific genre. And I saw some really good benefits of those charter schools. So I think, you know, there will always be a place for charter schools, but we must make sure that the funding and the accountability across the board is equal with the public schools. Thank you.
Dr. Missick.
So about charter schools, got 2 points on it. My brother went to one in Houston School of Performing Visual Arts. I guess that's a charter school, because he and I are, you know, artistically inclined, so it's good to take students with special skills and help cultivate them and help them to achieve their dreams and mold them in their special, unique talents. Of course, we need to have standards, and we want to make sure everybody's got a good quality education. But part of the reason, look what happened in Virginia. They were teaching critical race theory, and through COVID, you know, parents became aware of what was going on, and they vent their, I've been angry and upset, they vent their frustrations. Then, you know, there's, you know, it was Merrick Garland singing the FBI, it was ridiculous. But when parents they're concerned about their students being taught things that possibly due to their traditional Christian values and to America, through this Marxist ideology, that's going to motivate them to take their children out of public schools. So that just shows, that shows that they need to make sure that our public schools are not teaching radical leftist ideology. Because if you want to encourage most parents to keep their kids in public school, then that's not a good thing to present, right? Not a good look for the school. So I can understand parents doing that for that reason. It's like, I want my children to have a biblical Christian worldview, and so that could incline certain parents to homeschool or charter school, or send their students to their children to a religious school. So I do support choice in education, but I want everybody to get the highest quality education so they can succeed in life and enrich our community and our culture and the United States of America.
Thank you, sir. Before we move on, just a quick reminder of our candidates before the next question. We might not want to remind candidates not to refer to another candidate's answers. So just make sure that we're not doing that. And Representative Mills.
Charter schools have a place. I think they can be very effective in an urban area. However, in our rural school districts, they can be more of a detractor than a benefit. So I do not oppose charter schools. I oppose the application and the implications associated with them and how they're currently being used and promoted in the state of Texas. So there's a huge bit of funding inequity. Also now, as far as the transportation allotment, that's lumped in. All charter schools receive full money for transportation. They don't have to provide transportation. They don't have to provide counseling. They also don't have to accept anyone with learning disabilities. They don't have to accept anyone that has behavioral issues. So I asked the question when I went on the tours, we don't tolerate that. So I raised my hand, I said, so what do you mean by you don't tolerate that? Well, they're expelled from our school. I said, is the public school, are they required to take those same students? They are. That's the problem. It's not the proper fix. We have state funding for profit, and that's not always the best incentive. So it gets brought up a lot as far as, well, Christian, Judeo-Christian, it's really important that we teach our kids in the way of. When you start allowing the utilization of state funds, they also teach religious schools that are not Judeo-Christian, have views very different than your own. But what's good for the goose is good for the gander. You have to be very mindful of that and the negative unintended consequence associated with that. So with that, I don't feel that's the best answer for our hypersonic growth as it's been utilized and promoted by TEA. So I think it's better to address the growth allotment and the growth adjustment, which we did, rather than promotion of charter schools.
Thank you. Our next topic is school funding and state budget. In 2021, the legislature maintained current funding levels for schools. In addition, schools received substantial federal support for learning loss, after-school programs and summer school programs, and other COVID-related funding needs, which will run out in 3 years. Dr. Missick, you'll be first. Have you talked to your school districts about what they are doing with their federal stimulus funds? If so, what have you found out about how they're addressing learning loss?
Well, I was looking in how they are spending the funds. They're hiring tutors. They're also expanding summer school programs to help children catch up, our young people to catch up. They're also using some of this COVID funds, so sometimes it's air purification systems, so the funding is used in a variety of ways. And I guess that's all of that's important, right? Because we want healthy, our young people to be healthy in the schools, not have, mitigate the risks of things like that, not in an excessive manner, I believe it. So funding is being used in various ways, but like I was saying earlier, I think it's important for us to help. And all grade levels have been hit by COVID, and we need to find ways to help them catch up so they're not behind, because if we have this entire generation of young people behind, that's not good for our entire state of Texas and the entire country. So it's good to have these funds, and we need to encourage learning and help our kids get back to where they need to be so we can move on to the future post-COVID.
Thank you. Representative Mills.
I have personally had the opportunity to meet with all my school administrators and the counties that I currently represent and the new counties. I've met with every school superintendent in all of Hardin County. I met with the school superintendents of Splendora, Duquesne, ISD, East Montgomery County. It's very important that we start these conversations now. So the problem is they're having to use a lot of federal funds that come down to meet the regulations that are put in place for safety, so that it's not a liability on behalf of the district, but they are given small amounts of funds and impossible parameters that they have to meet. So that's the problem just on the safety side, and that's not talking about the loss of education. And we as a legislature in our infinite wisdom, we have also made mistakes and put 3-to-1 tutoring, addressing a lot of those, and for that I do apologize. And we are working to get those fixed. I tell you, we were not able to address enough when it comes to actual education, educating our students last session. We came in just like you guys were dealing with COVID. Then we had this little winter storm event. So we were flatly told that this can wait till next session. Don't even bring it up. We'll address it next session. And the problem is our kids are the one who got the short end of that stick. We are very in tune, we're very aware, and that's one thing that's important to have that relationship. And any questions that we've had, we've done our best to try to address those.
Thank you, sir. And Ms. Holt.
You know, COVID really threw our school districts for a loop, and everybody was scrambling to do the best that they could, from our teachers to our custodial staff to our administration. And so when ESSER funds came in, the federally funded, you know, there was a long list of things that fell under that, that you could use those ESSER funds for. And so as we began to look at that with my superintendent, we began to look at that and how could we best utilize those funds. And some of the top ways are those after-school tutorials, before-school tutorials, and then the summer school program that we were able to, able to add more teachers also to our school. So, you know, we use some of ours for to hire new teachers, but in the 3 years up, when that time frame is up, you know, we're gonna have to have funding for that, you know, to keep that teacher on because we don't want to, have to let a teacher go. So we had to, when we were doing that, we were looking at those things too as well. Another thing that we used in our district was technology. You know, we put some money into that technology and into iPads, smart boards, things like that, that we're able to, should we have to do a remote situation, we would have a little more freedom with a teacher being able to work with a student who's looking online from their home. Also, when we called ours safe return, you know, when we got back into school. And so, some of that was for that cleaning, of the schools, making the safety, making it, make sure that we had a safe environment for our students and our staff to come back to school. And I know some of them also, use the all-day pre-K. We already had all-day pre-K, but we were able to use, do that too in some districts, able to add those. So all of these things coming together with those ESSER funds, we're trying to make sure that we can close those gaps just as efficiently and effectively as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Holt. For our last question tonight, we will stick with school funding and state budget. The state will potentially have a budget surplus of $12 billion and another $12 billion available in the state's rainy day fund going into next legislative session. Texas continues to be about $4,000 below the national average in per student spending. What are your funding priorities for public education next session? Representative Bills, we'll start with you.
I think it's funding equity. I mean, we don't fund per school district across the board. And a lot of that is we don't have the taxable base. You look at a small school like Devers here, which has a smaller group, and we have a lot of production. You look at Cleveland ISD right down the road, then you look at even the differences between Liberty and Dayton to make sure that we give every kid the best possible opportunity, and also in taking that funding and taking that surplus, that we also were able to help out a reduction of ad valorem property taxes. So we increase the state's contribution where it's supposed to be. We were able to do that last time. I think that is the biggest thing. The reason a lot of people have turned off to public education is because they look at the tax statement. They look at what percentage actually goes to funding public education versus not. And I think that does a disservice to, it turns in animosity to our public education system even more than the road we're already up against. So I think to make sure that we empower our teachers, that we not tie the funding that we allocate to our school districts to a one-size-fits-all approach. Every school district has a locally elected school board. You know best what your needs are. We do a really great job of every time we give you a little bit extra money, we give you 3 mandates and it absorbs every bit of additional money and funding that we give you, and you accomplish nothing with that funds. So I think it's always very important to make sure that we help from the public standpoint to reduce ad valorem property taxes, that we help to increase the funding in our classroom, and we make sure that we can help from the rural connectivity and the technology to help more of our rural schools have the same opportunity that our urban counterparts do.
Thank you, Representative Mills. Ms. Holt?
There are many things that I believe that we need to look at with the funding for our public schools. I think we need to continue those incentives for our teacher retention. We need to make sure that we're retaining, attracting and retaining good teachers in our public schools. We need to also, as I mentioned earlier, I alluded to the fact of the mental stress that is going on with our students, and honestly with our teachers too as well. I never had to teach with COVID, so I don't know what that stress was like firsthand, but just listening to the teachers in my school district, I know that was very stressful to them. And so I think we need to provide counselors and other mental health experts to be able to provide that service to our students and our staff. I think we also need to make sure that we're funding that technology. You know, we need to make sure that we have connectivity all across our state. We need to make sure that the technology is available to every student in every district. And a few years ago, we used to have a program called FTA, Future Teachers of America. And I haven't seen that program in a very long time, but that was a great way to grow up teachers in our local area. You know, the kids go through school and then they move. And, you know, so it's very hard. There's not a very large pool of teachers to choose from. And so if we can bring that back and fund that in a way, incentivize that, I think we can grow some teachers up in our local districts. And I think we need to take a very hard look at teacher pay and the benefits that are with our teachers too, and make sure that we are providing the best that we can in that funding. That teacher incentive allotment is very important, and I think we need to continue that through TEA and make sure that we are able to reward our teachers in the best way possible. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And Dr. Missick.
Well, we should want Texas to lead the way, not be behind $4,000, right? We should be leading the way among all the states in America. And we need to encourage technology. I've seen that in other schools. I think what Representative Bales has said is correct. Each school knows its individual needs. We need to give them the flexibility to address the needs that they have instead of mandating, you know, how they spend every little cent. But like I was saying earlier, technology is important. A lot of schools I work in, you see, you know, they have the technology. They got Chromebooks or pads for all the students to have in class. And in certain rural districts, that is important, so they have this technology accessible to them so they can move into the future. And also believe, of course, we need to have a focus on STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, so that we can lead the way and set up our young people for a better future. But you know, I personally believe, I think that the Bible's had a big impact in Western civilization, so I'd like to see schools have the Bible as literature elective available. I think that'd be a good thing as well. So there's, like I said, the main point is to give these schools the funding they need. Like I said, Texas should be behind, we should be ahead, and so they can address their individual needs in their schools to set up their students for success.
Thank you. This time, this concludes our question and answer part of the forum. We will now move to our closing statements. Each candidate will now have 2 minutes for their closing remarks. And we will start with Dr. Missick.
Thank you.
I could have just kept you there.
I'm sorry. Well, as I have said throughout the night, education is very important. We need to support our public schools and our students. They're our future. And I believe in America. I'm a patriot. I've served this country for 28 years in the military, been to combat twice, been aboard for 3 years. And so I believe in America and our young people in the schools as the future of America. We need to keep our nation great and on a path for greatness in the future. So I support our teachers, but even though I do believe in choice and homeschooling and voucher schools, we still need to stand 100% behind our educators. As an educator, I know how difficult it is having worked in the public school system. We need to support them and pay them fairly. If you want to know my positions on various issues, I have my YouTube channel. You can check me out there. And Dr. Missick, Aaron 12 on YouTube, and where I address various issues. So if you have any questions, I'll be lingering around here for a while. So thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you, Dr. Missick. We appreciate that. Next is Ms. Holt. Your closing remarks. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank the Raise Your Hand Texas, specifically the East Texas branch of that, for conducting this forum this evening. I am pleased to be able to share my views on public education. It's so important that we make sure that public education is always fully funded, whether we have charter schools, private schools, and then there's homeschools, but whether we have funding for those and however that takes place in the future, I do believe, as the question alluded early on, that there will be a big push for that. But regardless, we have to make sure that our public schools are fully funded, because 90% of our children will go to a public school. And so I think it's important that we stay on focus, stay targeted on supporting those public schools. My name again is Janice Holt. You can go to holtfortexas.com and find out more about me. I also will be hanging around for just a few minutes if you'd like to come by and ask questions about my answers. I'll be happy to share more information. And again, you can go to holtfortexas.com, and I look forward to visiting with you. Thank you again very much.
Thank you, Ms. Holt. And Representative Mills.
First of all, I appreciate you guys caring enough to be part of public education and for being here. I've been able to serve this district for the last 6 years, and my track record speaks well for itself. I've always been there for public education. That is what makes our district what it is. You have to recruit quality teachers, you have to retain them, and make sure that education is first, well above politics. I've never let politics cloud a vote. I'm doing what is best for this district and these kids. That is not why you sent me there. I'm there for service, and I'm there to make sure that our kids, which are our future, have the best opportunity possible, and that you guys are supported in the capacity of educating our kids. So with that, let me know if you ever have any questions, and I look forward to being able to serve you guys and our kids next session and for years to come. Thank you.
This concludes our candidate forum. Let us please show our gratitude to the candidates for their participation in this evening. First, I just want to say thank you for allowing me to be the moderator tonight. I really appreciate getting here at each one of your platforms, and so thank you. Also, a special thank you to Raise Your Hand Texas for putting this event together tonight and allowing you to speak. So we just want to say thank you to that. At this time, we will finish our program with a few words from Ms. Deanne Lee with Raise Your Hand Texas.
Again, I want to say thank you, Mr. Wagner, Mr. Kirshner, for serving tonight. You both did a fabulous job. And of course, candidates, thank you so much for taking the time to be here, and particularly on such an important issue. They had to do homework to prepare for this. They got their questions ahead of time, and so thank you for taking that time. Thank you all for being here, whether you are in person, whether you are online. We appreciate your attendance. Again, you showed how important public education is to you. And you can actually take that with you, because you can get swag over here, yard signs that say I support public education and I vote, and lots of other things to take with you as well. You can also take some cookies and water. But just remember, every legislative session is a public education session. Your vote matters. We see more and more in each election how just a few votes can make the difference. So remember that early voting actually starts Monday, Valentine's Day. What a better way to spend Valentine's. That's my plan for Monday. And then, of course, the primary election, Tuesday, March 1st. So again, thank you.